The smoke hit Maya's face before she even reached the stairwell. She had been halfway through a bowl of ramen when the fire alarm screamed through the building. And now
No!
she was outside in the parking
Let me
lot with
go!
30 other
I have to get
residents.
back inside!
Barefoot, watching orange light flicker through the window of apartment 4B, the fire department was coming. Someone had already called. People were huddled together, some recording on their phones, some crying, most just staring. And then she saw him. The Korean teenager from the 4th floor was trying to climb back into the burning building. He had both hands on the window frame. The paint was peeling off from the heat. His palms had to be burning. A man in a gray shirt grabbed his shoulder and yanked him back, shouting something about waiting for the firefighters, but the boy twisted free with a strength that surprised everyone watching. "Kid, get away from there." He didn't even look back. He grabbed the frame again. The smoke was thick now, pouring out in slow, dark waves. Maya found herself walking toward him without deciding to. She grabbed his arm with both hands. "What are you doing? You'll die." He turned and looked at her, and that was the moment she realized something was wrong. His eyes weren't panicked the way someone's eyes look when they're being irrational. They were focused, desperate in a way that went deeper than the moment. "She's still inside," he said. Maya looked past him into the burning apartment. She didn't see anyone. "Who's inside?" "Minji." The crowd went quiet. Someone behind Maya said it first. A woman who lived on the 3rd floor, arms crossed, voice low. "He's talking about the cat." Maya looked at the boy, then at the window, then back at the boy. He wasn't joking. He wasn't embarrassed. He was about to die for a cat, and he knew it, and he was still pulling toward that window. And in that moment, Maya made a decision she would spend the next 6 weeks trying to explain to herself. She let go of his arm, looked at the smoke, and said, "Tell me where she hides." His name was Ji-Hoon. Maya had seen him dozens of times in the 3 months since she'd moved into the Westbrook apartments, but they'd never exchanged more than a nod. He was 17, quiet in the way that felt heavy rather than shy, and he lived in 4B with his grandmother, a small woman named Mrs. Park who wore the same floral apron every morning and bowed slightly whenever she passed someone in the hallway. Maya was 26, worked dispatch for a logistics company, double shifts most weeks, came home tired enough to eat standing over the kitchen sink. She was friendly when she had the energy and invisible when she didn't. The apartment complex was the kind of place where people stayed in their own worlds, and that had always suited her fine. But she had noticed things about Ji-Hoon, the way you notice things about people you see every day without meaning to. He carried every grocery bag himself, never letting his grandmother lift anything heavier than her purse. He shoveled the walkway in winter before anyone asked. He never had friends over, never seemed to talk on the phone, never did the things 17-year-olds were supposed to do. There was a sadness around him that didn't feel like teenage moodiness. It felt older, more settled, like something he had learned to carry rather than something that had just arrived. The only time Maya ever saw him look like a regular kid was when he was with the cat. Minji was an orange tabby, fat and loud, with an attitude that didn't match her size. She would sit in the window of 4B every afternoon like she owned the building, and Ji-Hoon would come home from school, and her whole body would shift when she heard his key in the lock. Maya had watched him through the hallway once, not meaning to spy, just catching the moment, and she had thought it was sweet. The way he talked to that cat. The way she answered. She hadn't thought much more about it, until the fire. Ji-Hoon told her Minji always hid under the bed in the back bedroom when she was scared. Maya wrapped her jacket around her face, stayed low, moved fast. She had maybe 90 seconds before the smoke became a real problem. The kitchen was where the fire was, left side of the apartment, and the bedroom was right, far enough that there was still air near the floor if she kept her head down. She found Minji under the bed exactly where Ji-Hoon said she would be, curled into the tightest ball a cat could make, absolutely silent, eyes wide. Maya grabbed her, held her against her chest, and got back out. The crowd outside saw her emerge from the window, and there was a sound, a collective exhale, something between relief and disbelief. The firefighters pulled up 30 seconds later. Ji-Hoon didn't say anything. He just took Minji from her arms and held the cat so tight Maya almost said something about it. He slid down the side of the building until he was sitting on the pavement, knees up. Minji pressed against his chest, and he cried in a way that didn't match the situation. Not like someone who almost lost a pet, like someone who almost lost the last piece of something that had already been taken from him. Maya stood there watching him and felt the question form before she had words for it. What happened to you? If this story is already getting to you, go ahead and subscribe. It gets so much deeper 3 weeks later. The apartment had been repaired enough for Ji-Hoon and his grandmother to move back in, and Maya knocked on their door with a container of jollof rice and absolutely no plan beyond that. Mrs. Park opened the door, looked at the container, looked at Maya, and opened the door wider without saying a word. That was how it started. Maya came by twice that first week, then 3 times. Mrs. Park fed her things she couldn't pronounce and laughed when Maya fumbled with chopsticks, a real laugh, the kind that made her eyes disappear. Ji-Hoon sat at the table and ate quietly and mostly watched, but he stopped leaving the room when Maya came in, which felt like progress. On the 4th visit, Maya asked about Minji, not in a leading way, just casually while the cat was sitting on the counter ignoring everyone. "How old is she?" Ji-Hoon said. 8. "You've had her since you were little," he shook his head. "She wasn't mine originally." Park got up very quietly and went to do something in the other room. Maya waited. "She belonged to my sister," Ji-Hoon said. His voice was even. Practiced, Maya thought. The way you get when you've said hard things out loud enough times that you've figured out how to say them without falling apart. "Sumin," he continued. "She was 4 years older than me. She got Minji when she was 16, so Minji would have been..." He did the math silently. "4 when everything happened." Maya kept her voice level. "When everything happened..." Ji-Hoon looked at her. Then he said, "She disappeared 5 years ago. They said she ran away." The police closed the case. He picked up his fork. I never believed it. After that, something shifted. Maya started asking careful questions. Not to pry, but because the things Ji-Hoon said didn't add up, and she had always been the kind of person who needed things to add up. Sumin had been 21 when she vanished. She had been applying to university. Her acceptance letters were still in a folder in Mrs. Park's storage closet because Ji-Hoon's grandmother could not throw them away. She had a job, friends, a plan. People who run away don't leave their acceptance letters. They don't leave the cat they've had since they were 16. Maya started talking to people in the building. Casually. Neighborly. An older man named Gerald who'd lived there for 15 years told her, unprompted, that he'd never bought the runaway story. "That girl said good morning to me every single day," he said. "Even when she looked tired. Even when something was obviously wrong." You don't leave a place where you still say good morning. A woman who had worked at Sumin's school told Maya she'd been one of the sharpest students she'd ever had. "She was investigating something for the school paper that year," the woman said, then paused. "Actually, she dropped the story suddenly, told the editor she'd changed her mind. That wasn't like her." A mail carrier said she remembered Sumin because the girl had once asked her which days the building manager was usually around. "She seemed nervous," the woman said. "I remember thinking she looked scared." Maya brought all of this back to Ji-Hoon. He listened. Then he went to his grandmother and had a conversation in Korean that Maya couldn't follow, and Mrs. Park left the room again and came back with a shoebox. Inside were letters, journal entries in Sumin's handwriting, photographs, and pages of notes written in a mix of Korean and English. Maya spent 2 hours reading. Then she looked up at Ji-Hoon. "Long have you had this?" "A few years. I found some of it after grandmother moved things around. Some of it she'd been keeping, she didn't know what to do with it." "Have you read all of it?" "Most of it, not all. Some of it is hard." Maya looked back at the pages. "Ji-Hoon, your sister wasn't writing a school story. She was documenting something." He nodded slowly. "She was gathering evidence." He nodded again. Maya asked the question she already half knew the answer to. "Evidence of what?" 3 days later, someone broke into apartment 4B. Ji-Hoon and his grandmother came home to find the door slightly open, the lock scratched around the keyhole. Nothing was taken. The television was still there. Mrs. Park's jewelry box was untouched. The kitchen drawer with cash in it hadn't been opened, but the shoebox was gone. Maya called Ji-Hoon from her apartment the moment she heard. He was calm on the phone in a way that was worse than if he'd been upset. "I made copies," he said. "I photographed everything the night after you read it," she exhaled. "Ji-Hoon, I know. Someone is watching this apartment. I know. Whatever your sister found out, it is still dangerous. 5 years later, it is still dangerous enough that someone came here." A long pause, then he said, "So you believe me now that she didn't run away?" It wasn't a question, but Maya answered it anyway. "Yes, I believe you. Go anywhere." Because this is where everything breaks open. The copies Ji-Hoon had made told a story that took them 2 more days to fully piece together. Sumin had been investigating a network of local businesses that were being used to move people. Not goods. People. She had names, she had dates, she had photographs taken from a distance of transactions that didn't match the storefronts they were happening behind. She had written, in careful English, the names of men she recognized from the neighborhood. Respected men. Men who showed up at community events and shook hands and were photographed smiling. She had been building a case. And then she had vanished. Maya sat across from Ji-Hoon at the kitchen table and watched him read the last entries again. His face was completely still. Mrs. Park was at the stove, not cooking anything, just standing with her back to both of them. She knew it was dangerous, Ji-Hoon said quietly. She wrote that. She said she was going to take everything to a reporter she trusted, and then she was going to leave the city for a while until it was public. Never got the chance. He folded the papers carefully, set them on the table. She was trying to protect people, that's who she was. His voice dropped. She always thought she could fix things. Maya didn't say anything. Sometimes nothing is the right answer. After a long moment, Ji-Hoon looked at Minji, who had climbed into the empty chair between them and was washing her face with the complete indifference of a cat who had no idea she was sitting in the middle of something that mattered enormously. Min used to say Minji was her good luck charm, he said. She said as long as she had that cat, things would work out. He almost smiled. I think she was wrong about that. Maya looked at the cat. Then she looked at the photographs in the pile. Then something pulled at her attention. She picked up one of the photos. It was of Minji, younger, sitting on a counter at what looked like a vet's office. On the back, written in Min's handwriting, was a number, not a phone number, too short, and next to it the word Oak. Maya stared at it. Oak storage mean anything to you? Ji-Hoon looked up. That's the storage place on 5th. Why? Because I think your sister left you something. The locker took them 40 minutes to find once they had the number. When they opened it, Maya stood back and let Ji-Hoon go in first. He came out holding a weatherproof bag. Inside it were 2 flash drives, a folder of printed documents, and a handwritten note. The note said, "If you're reading this, then something happened to me. I'm sorry. I need you to be brave. I need you to take this to someone who will tell the truth. I love you more than I ever said. Take care of Minji." Ji-Hoon read it 3 times. Then he folded it and put it in his pocket. Maya didn't ask to see it. The evidence on the drives was enough. Maya had a contact, a woman she'd gone to school with who now worked for a regional investigative outlet, and she made one phone call. The drives went to the right people. The documents were verified. What happened next moved faster than Maya expected. There was a community harvest festival in the neighborhood 8 days later, a crowded outdoor event with food vendors and a small stage. And it was there, in the middle of a Saturday afternoon, that 2 of the men named in Min's documents were approached by federal agents. Maya and Ji-Hoon watched from near the fence. There was no dramatic scene. No shouting. Just men in plain clothes walking alongside men who had attended this same festival for years. Shaking hands and smiling for photographs, and now walking away between people who were not smiling at all. Ji-Hoon watched until they were out of sight. Then he said, "She did it. She actually did it. It just took 5 more years and a cat who refused to die in a fire." Maya laughed. It was the kind of laugh that comes out when something hurts and relieves at the same time. "She did it," Maya agreed. The following month, Ji-Hoon went to the memorial his grandmother had kept for Min in a small cemetery across the city. He had never been there with anyone other than Mrs. Park before. He brought Minji in her carrier. He brought Maya. They sat on the bench near the stone for a long time. Mrs. Park had already been that morning, so there were fresh flowers. Minji pressed her nose against the mesh of the carrier and was quiet in a way she rarely was. Ji-Hoon finally said, "I almost died trying to save that cat." Maya looked at him. "And because of that cat, your sister finally came home." He was quiet for a moment. Then he nodded. On the drive back, Mrs. Park reached forward from the back seat and put her hand briefly on Maya's shoulder. She didn't say anything. She didn't need to. That evening, the 4 of them sat in the apartment, Minji asleep between Ji-Hoon and Maya on the couch, Mrs. Park watching a Korean drama with the volume low, and it was the most ordinary evening in the world. Maya thought about the moment she had climbed through that burning window, and how at the time she had thought she was doing it for a cat. She hadn't understood yet that she was doing it for a family. A family neither of them had expected. If this story moved you, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. And drop an answer in the comments to this question. Would you risk your life to save a pet you loved? Because based on what we saw today, sometimes the bravest thing and the most important thing turn out to be exactly the same choice. We'll see you in the next story.